Picture this. You've had a long day, you're lying on the couch feeling completely drained, and suddenly your cat leaps right onto your chest. For most of us, the immediate reaction is to take this as a deeply personal gesture. We read it as a hug, an attempt to comfort us, or a declaration of unconditional love. But climbing is actually a highly specific, whole-body communication tool. Your cat is using their entire physical presence to tell you something they cannot express with a meow. When we misinterpret these signals, our well-intentioned petting can feel like an intrusion. If their specific attempts to communicate are consistently met with the wrong human response, your cat may eventually learn that using these physical signals to reach out is no longer worth the effort. Treating a feline like a tiny human in these moments creates a fundamental disconnect. To truly connect with them, we have to stop projecting human emotions and learn how to read their biological language. This chart illustrates the difference between our internal baseline and a cat's. While we run at roughly 37 degrees Celsius, a cat's natural body temperature sits significantly higher, at about 38.6 degrees. Maintaining that intense internal heat takes a massive amount of energy, so on a chilly night, or if you have a thin-furred breed, your body is simply the most reliable, breathing heat source in the room. You can spot a purely heat-seeking climb easily. They will find the warmest spot, usually your chest or stomach, tuck their paws tightly underneath their body, and go absolutely still to conserve energy. If they aren't tucking those paws in, they might be using them for a completely different chemical purpose. Cats have specific scent glands hidden right between their toes, called interdigital glands. Every time they press those paw pads into your body, they leave behind invisible pheromones, a chemical name tag. In a multi-cat home, this is a territorial claim. If a second cat climbs on you later, they are actively establishing ownership. Removing a cat while they are marking you effectively erases the chemical boundary they were trying to establish. It turns a moment of intended security into one of active rejection. A cat's perception of the world is driven by an incredibly powerful sensor network. Humans navigate life with roughly 5 million scent receptors. Cats have around 200 million. That extreme sensitivity allows them to detect tiny chemical changes inside your body that you don't even realize are happening. They smell cortisol when you're stressed, notice breathing shifts when you're sad, and detect compounds when you're sick. The New England Journal of Medicine documented Oscar, a nursing home cat. He would climb onto patients' beds and refuse to leave, successfully detecting the biological markers of death hours before doctors knew it was approaching. That highly tuned nervous system can also get easily overwhelmed. A sudden loud noise, a new piece of furniture, or an unfamiliar smell in the house can send their system into overdrive. When that happens, they climb you purely because you are the most stable, trustworthy object in the room. You can recognize this anxiety immediately. Their body feels stiff, pupils dilated, and they use unsheathed claws to physically grip onto you for stability. If you react to that tense animal by petting them, you add more sensory input to an already overloaded brain. They don't want affection right now. They need silent, calm, structural support. For cats that have survived trauma or are adjusting to a new home, climbing serves a completely different psychological function. They aren't climbing you because they feel safe. They are climbing to test if they are safe. You'll see this test happen in real time. The cat will climb halfway onto your chest, freeze in place with a tense posture, and lock their gaze directly onto your face without blinking. They are watching your every micro movement closely. If you shift your weight, adjust a blanket, or reach over to grab your phone, they register that tiny unconscious movement as a failure of the safety test. When an anxious cat approaches you with this hesitant, testing behavior, the only way to prove you are trustworthy is to remain absolutely motionless. Let them dictate the pace and allow them to decide when it's safe to settle down. So, what does a genuine, affectionate climb actually look like? The posture is completely relaxed. They offer slow, heavy blinks, and they begin pressing their paws into your chest in a rhythmic, alternating pattern. This is a perfect example of neoteny, an evolutionary process where domestic animals retain juvenile, kitten-like behaviors well into adulthood. That rhythmic pawing is called milk kneading. It is an infantile survival reflex used to stimulate a mother's milk flow, a physical habit that adult cats in the wild completely grow out of. When a domestic cat kneads on you, it triggers a massive neurochemical response. It floods their brain with dopamine for pleasure and oxytocin for social bonding. It is the exact same chemical cocktail that floods a mother's brain holding her newborn. At that moment, your cat has neurologically transported themselves back to the absolute safest environment they have ever experienced, and they have actively selected you to stand in for that safety. By paying attention to their physical vocabulary, whether it's tucked paws for warmth, a stiff grip for stability, or kneading for chemical bonding, we can stop guessing what our cats want and start listening to what they're actually saying.